Hello, it's Mike here, and I'm doing a sort of response to BigDan's refusal to move to the future. Now, the first thing I want to get straight is I am not creating this to criticize you BigDanz. I believe that every single person has a right to choose what they want to do, what they don't want to do. But I just thought I would give my opinion on your discussion, especially about high definition gaming and the future of gaming. Now, I've made a list, so bear with me. First on my list is HD gaming. Now, having been a gamer since, 1977, from the good old days of Pong. In the UK, it was released by a company called Binatone. Yeah, you probably never heard of them because they're a very small electrical company. And worked my way up. One thing I've noticed, especially in the last decade, nearly 2 decades, going back to, I would say, 1993, when Doom was released on the PC, and you had the likes of SimCity 2000. And games of that nature. When they came out, they were amazing. I mean, in my experience, I had an Amiga, which was made by Commodore, and it used a standard definition TV. Now, obviously, I'm quite lucky because my eyesight is probably the only sense that I have that still works. My hearing is dodgy, my sense of smell is almost non-existent, but my eyesight works. And I noticed that there was a big difference when you ran, for instance, Syndicate on the Amiga, on a standard definition TV, and Syndicate on a PC, which was a high definition monitor. Now, the improvement of the picture quality didn't really improve the quality of the game, but what it did allow you was more on the screen, because the problem is, especially today, you have high definition versions of the same thing. An example, if you were to run, I don't know, Gears of War at 720p, and let's just pretend that it can run at 1080p as well, you don't get a bigger panoramic screen. You don't see more on the screen. It is just slightly high detailed. And I would have to agree with you that unless you're pausing the game or stopping and looking at specific things like objects which were very detailed, you would probably not notice a difference. An example, a friend of mine, he had a PlayStation 3 using standard definition TV, and I was playing the same game on a 1080i, which I know is not the best, but it's it's what you can afford and what's available at the time. And the only difference I noticed was that the text was clearer. So if you're playing a game where you have actors talking, you wouldn't notice the difference. The difference is there, but it's not as great as you'd think. Now, you talked about Blu-ray and DVD. I would say that Blu-ray is substantially better than DVD. Now, that could be because in my experience, high definition TVs are nothing more than PC monitors. It's a PC monitor with extra ports, and normally they have some kind of special refresh thing which basically upscales, so that you can run, for instance, if you have a device like you don't actually have to have Blu-ray to have high definition. A lot of DVD players upscale and improve the quality. So the problem is DVD, VHS And standard resolution consoles are not designed for high definition devices. And that is why a lot of people, not all, but a lot will complain that the quality isn't there. Whereas if you put a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox original onto a standard definition display, the picture is better because it's designed for that. Now, I can understand why you don't want to upgrade to the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4. And I agree, because so far, and I'm not saying that this is going to be the case always, because in my experience, the first 2 years of any console generally are just regurgitated versions of what came before. This is why so far there has been nothing really worth spending £350 or £430 for a new console. I mean, I've got the Wii U, and personally I think the Wii U is fine. The graphics are perfectly fine. I've only played 3 or 4 games, but they seem to be perfectly fine. I'm sure that the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 could probably do better versions of the same thing, but I don't think it has anything to do with the power. It's more to do with the RAM. I mean, it's like having a Porsche with a mini engine. You know, the faster the car is, the larger the tank has to be to fuel it, and that's why the RAM is more important. And one thing that I remember reading about the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 was that the extra RAM would be used for artificial intelligence. So the problem is, it's not so much the aesthetic details, because they probably do look far better, but it's underneath the hood. The interaction with the characters, that's where the change will be. The only problem is, if you were to release a game on the PlayStation 4, for example, and then release the same version on the PlayStation 3, could you actually make it playable? The problem is, at the moment, the answer is yes, because they're not utilising the extra RAM properly. And this goes back to my initial point about HD, and especially PC games. Programmers have become lazy. An example, on consoles, the reason why, for instance, the best games don't come out till near the end is because they are forced to work within a certain parameter. For instance, you can have a game on the PlayStation 3 that looks better than a PC that's 4 times faster, has a graphics card that pisses on it. It might have 8 gig of RAM, and it runs like shit. And the reason for that is this: why bother optimizing your program to make the most of it when you can just say, well, just add more RAM? It is a terrible way to do things. And because the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 has quite a lot of RAM, there are rumours that the Xbox One will soon allow you to have external hard drives. So rather than tightening up your code, all they do is say, well, you know, it takes 150 gig of hard drive space, so just buy an external hard drive, rather than tidy it up, fix the problems, and respond to complaints. So in a way, we have become the beta testers. Well, $60 for a game, or it's about £55, that's $90, $100 in the UK, to play a game on a console is ridiculous if it's not finished. So I would agree that the new systems as at the moment have not provided anything to justify me wanting to spend a single penny. Now, also you talk about the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, Xbox, etc. You're right. The PlayStation 2 has 6,000 games. Even if you were to play 10% of those and record them for your channel, that's 600. You have enough games there to record for a decade or more. There are games which fans might actually want to buy, which they've never heard of. I mean, if I was to sort of pull out just PlayStation games from the top of my head, I'd be lucky if I could count 100. So the point is that there's enough games to keep your channel going for a long time. You don't have to go HD. I don't think the new consoles offer anything that could not be done on machines now. I mean, in the future, we will see games which cannot be done. And I think that it would be worth looking at the machines when there are at least a handful of games to justify the expense. At the moment, I don't care about Call of Duty Ghost on the Xbox One. It's on the Xbox 360. You know, I don't care about updated versions of PlayStation 3 games like The Last of Us. It's already on the PlayStation 3. What I do care about is games that not only are exclusive to the next generation, but games that make me want to spend a lot of money. So I don't want to see updates of games that have come out before. I want to see new IPs which actually are unique, something that cannot be done on the previous generation. So no, I agree with you, but let me just go on to my second point. VHS tapes. Please don't take this personal. It's just my observation, and maybe I've not been very lucky. I hate VHS tapes. I have always hated them, because after you recorded on the tape a couple of times, they look like shit. And they look even worse when you have a large screen TV. And I'm not talking about high definition, because in the past I've bought 28-inch 4:3 ratio TVs and 32-inch 16:9 standard definition TVs, and they look terrible. And so I personally moved on to DVD. And part of the reason was because, you see, VHS tapes generally use composite, the single yellow plug. And in my experience, they are by far nearly the worst connection you can get. The picture is blurry. I remember playing Mario Kart on the Nintendo 64, and it came with those, the yellow, red and white connections. The white and red are the sound, the yellow is the picture. And I upgraded to video, what is it? S-Video. And the picture quality was vastly different. So all I'm suggesting is that you try and use the best connection to get the best picture in standard definition. You don't need high definition. An example, I've seen high definition versions of Super Mario 3. What is the point? It's still the same game, just I suppose upscaled to make everything, the blocks look larger, because the original footage is not going to improve if you put it in 1080p. It's still going to look exactly the same, so I can understand that. And I don't see a problem with that. All I'm saying is that you make the best quality recordings with what you have. Now, as for digital cameras, you don't actually have to spend a lot of money on them. I would never buy a brand new digital camera for the simple reason that what they are promoting is the resolution. And that is different to quality. An example I've got somewhere around here, here we are. Right, yeah, this one here. So this little digital camera, that is 7 megapixel. And the video quality on it's reasonable. Now here, let me explain the difference, which is why it's important to actually do your research rather than just look at details. This is a 5 megapixel camera, but I can get a far better recording from this than I could ever get from that. And I'll tell you why. This is what you call a quality camera. It is designed to give you pictures, maybe not, professional quality, but it's designed specifically for that purpose. When you record a video on it, the quality is better. So what you're looking for, in my opinion, if you were to buy a digital camera, is to get yourself one which has SLR features. So, and you don't have to spend a lot. I mean, that thing is about 10 years old. So you could probably pick that thing up for $40. So you don't have to spend a lot on a decent quality camera. Just as if you were to buy, say, a DVD equivalent camcorder. Because they're so old, I mean, I've got one that uses digital videotapes. And the recording from that is better than high definition camcorders today. And the reason for that is quite simple. When you buy a digital camera today, it's not a camcorder. It's a camera which can record. And when you zoom in and zoom out, because of the high resolution, it takes so much longer for the processor to recognize that you've zoomed in and then refocus, so you get this terrible pixelated picture. So I would suggest to you to buy yourself an old camcorder. I wouldn't say videotape based because they're shit, but something which is digital videotape, perhaps hard drive based, because they've been around for a decade as well, and some of the older ones probably will be quite cheap. I'm not guaranteeing it, but because people tend to move on quickly, old technology tends to lose its price dramatically. Now, what else did I want to... I would say you don't need high definition, but it does help. Because in my experience, from observations, the picture quality is better. But it's a bit like... it's a bit like having a car. You know, Ferrari is faster than a Mini, but they both get you from A to B. So it all depends what you want to use. Now, you don't want it to upgrade to HD. I can understand that. The only thing I would suggest is, instead of thinking about it in the terms of quantity, think of it as quality. Trying to get the best with what you have. I mean, I spent years optimizing PCs, and I did that because, well, I'm cheap too. I would rather keep what I have and make the most of it, rather than have spend a fortune. An example: this PC is 6-7 years old. Now I could go out. Well, I can't, but if I had the money, I could go out and I could get, for instance, 8-core Intel processor with 16 gig of RAM, 2 4-terabyte hard drives, SSD, maybe 2 or 3 graphics cards. But would they really justify the cost? I could get myself a nice 4K TV and run it on that, and it'll probably look really, really nice. But is it worth the money? That's what I think it comes down to, is cost. You see, in the future, eventually the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One will be affordable. And there will be a selection of games which are good, which cannot be done on the current generation. But it might not be for another 4 years. So, if you don't want to upgrade, cool. Will I upgrade? I don't know. Because quite frankly, I'm getting bored of the same type of game. The original Xbox One was released, and a majority of the games released on it looked like they should have been on the PC. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, the games looked similar, but that was partly because a majority, especially first-person shoot-'em-up games, tended to use the Unreal 3 engine. I'm not saying all, but a lot of them. And so they tended to look the same. Now, on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, I would suspect that you will see something similar due to the cost of the games. Do I really want to play another game, that would look perfectly fine on the current generation? No. I don't see why I should spend a fortune playing games which look exactly the same as what I've got. I mean, Final Fantasy 15 will look nice, but will it really improve the overall experience because it's on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4? I doubt it. So, I would say, you don't want to upgrade? It's cool. For me, I'm not upgrading until there's something that justifies it. And I'm not talking about the same shit. Because quite frankly, I'm bored of first-person shoot-em-ups. I've been playing them for 20 years. I'm bored of upgrades of SimCity. Because SimCity 2000, SimCity 3000, which was a slightly better version than that, 4000, SimCity Online, they all look the same to me. I mean, graphically they are better. I'm sure there are far more units, but why would I spend a lot of money on a newer version of what I've got? So anyway, I just want to give my 2 cents. I'm not criticising you because you have the right to your own decisions. I would just say there needs to be something to justify upgrading. So if you don't want to play newer games, that's fine, because let's face it, the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 are unreliable anyway. I mean, it's like having ticking time bombs. I've got an Xbox 360 and I'm wary of using it because I expect it to die. Because there's too much heat coming off the machine. The ventilation on it's terrible. It's designed by a monkey. Because anyone with 2 brain cells would realise that to get rid of the heat, you don't cover the bloody CPU and graphics card with plastic and metal. You're a moron. And that's why the Xbox One now has a massive fan with grills. They've learned from their mistakes. So I'm wary of using my Xbox One and PlayStation 3 because part of me is saying this will die. Whereas with the Xbox One or the PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2, I never had that fear. That fear that I will just turn it on and it will get so hot it's like, and it becomes an amorphous mess. So that would be why I would be wary of the current generation and new generations' heat problems. Now on the PC, I'm sure there's people say, well, if you want a best graphics, get a PC. Yeah, but you will never get anything that compares to the Xbox One or the PlayStation 3 for the same price. It's impossible. I mean, shit. This machine is 7 years old. I bought a new case for it and a new power supply, and I paid £150 just for the case and power supply. Add another £200, I could get PlayStation 4. It's a whole unit. So, okay, that is why I personally don't like high definition gaming. The hardware is not reliable, and although the games are quite cheap, but you can get one PC if you really want high definition and cheaper. But anyway, that's just my personal opinion. Do what you have to do. I don't really care about high definition either. That's just my opinion. It just seems to be a way of selling new shit. I mean, an example, look at the previous few years. You had high definition TVs, and for some reason in the UK they were pushing high definition TVs for football, because, or what you call soccer. And the reason being that, you could watch it in high definition, you could see the blades of grass. Yeah, because being able to see the blades of grass makes a football game more interesting, right? Being able to see the blues in the footballer's eyes makes it more interesting, right? Wrong. But it's a great way to sell the same shit and get you to then upgrade your contracts with your cable providers and pay more for a better picture. And then you had 3D TVs, which somehow just disappeared. They only were promoted 2 or 3 years ago. Watch it in 3D, watch it as it comes out at you. Oh, it's going to be amazing. 3 years later, where is it? It's gone. And now you've got 4K. It just seems to me that all they're doing is trying to sell the same shit with a different wrapper. You know, the PlayStation 4 can run 4K, but not in games. So, you know, you get these morons that go, oh, I'm going to get myself a 72-inch 4K TV, it's going to be amazing, yeah! And then they get it home and realise the only thing they can watch is pictures. Maybe they can watch 4K films, which are so frigging big that if you do decide you want to watch a film, you have to download it the day before, because it's going to be big. Even at the so-called 200:1 compression ratio mentioned for 4K movies, it's still going to be big. And then after that, eventually you'll get 8K, because in the cinema 36mm is 4K, 72mm is 8K, and that was a standard introduced in the 1930s. Well done. You've caught up with the cinema, which is the good part of 100 years old. But they will then eventually sell you that, because there are people who will go out and they will just upgrade the same shit and they will convince themselves it looks better. And if I had a 25-foot screen, I might be able to see the difference. But because it will be on a reasonably sized screen, people will convince themselves it has improved. And maybe it has. But the problem is you're buying the same shit. You know, why buy, for instance, okay, I mean, VHS is terrible in my opinion. But if you got a film on VHS and you're happy with it, why upgrade to DVD or Blu-ray or 4K or 8K or whatever else they release? It's going to be the same film. It's not like, for instance, one argument I made about HD. We have things called soap operas in the UK. Something like EastEnders of Coronation Street is going to be improved because it's in high definition. I think soaps are shit. Just my opinion. Football is not going to be improved in high definition. And I would apply the same analogy to games. A game is a good game irrespective of the resolution it is running. So to say that something is better because it's in high definition, I disagree. But it helps, especially if it improves it. So if they have high definition and you can see more, then okay, fair enough. But if it's just the same thing with more pixels, which require you to pause and stare at to see the difference, I don't really think that's an improvement. It's just a way to sell more shit for the sake of selling more shit. And yeah. Anyway, that was just my 2 cents. I might be talking up my arse, but anyway, thanks for watching.